What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well on this Thursday. And I'm going to be taking a 1 day break from the draft evaluation videos. Just felt like it. Got a couple other things that I want to touch on today. Got to take a little bit of a pause every now and then. And we have plenty of time, actually. I actually wrote it all out, what I was planning on doing in terms of video stuff. And I was actually kind of surprised. There is plenty of time left for everything that we need to do. So I'm going to take this video, the first video of the day, to talk about cap space because it's the question that everybody has. And it's not a question that anybody can really answer, but I can try. I can do the best that I can, and I can put some effort into really coming up with an accurate number. So, quite simply, the thing that people want to know, as of me recording this video, and I am recording this video as of about 12 hours before it goes up. So if something changes in the 12 hours between me recording this and me posting this, then sorry, I guess all that hard work goes down the drain. But let's try to figure this out as of what we learned last night about Uchenna Nwosu redoing his contract. So as of the Uchenna Nwosu restructure, according to OTC, our cap space is this, basically $70 million. $70 million. However, that is without contract details on 7 players that I know of. I believe OTC has everyone other than these 7 players, but these 7 players are very significant. So let's go through it one by one, and I'll give my estimates on what the 2025 cap hit could be, keeping in mind that we're just kind of spitballing here. Understand that nothing we say is going to be accurate. So let's start with Sam Darnold. Now, he got 3 years, 100 million. Who's another player that recently signed a contract like 3 years, 100 million? Baker Mayfield. In fact, the Darnold deal is basically identical to the Baker Mayfield deal in terms of basic structure. Now, Baker had 2 void years in his extension in 27 and 28, and I don't know if the Darnold contract will have those. If they do, then that opens up some real possibilities here. Also, the Baker Mayfield cap hits are extremely backloaded to a degree that I don't think that John will be willing to do. And honestly, to an extent that I don't know if he wants to do or if he should do. It's pushing it a little bit, right? This is a little bit icky to only have that not even $7 million cap hit in 2024 and then just get hit with a tsunami in the next couple of years. So, taking that into account, it's obviously going to be more than that, but how much is it? I ended up estimating, and I'm going to go ahead and do the dramatic reveal here. Let's say $13 million. Let's say it's a $13 million cap hit for 2025. Okay. Next up, we have Cooper Kupp. We know that he signed a 3 year, $45 million deal. We don't know anything else about it, which is, again, frustrating because I'm pretty confident a decent chunk of that money is in incentives, and some of it might even be in incentives that are not assumed to be hit, which is what happened with DeMarcus Lawrence. However, one player that signed a very similar deal recently was Javon Holland. He signed 3 years, 45.3 with the Giants, and his contract is actually paced out pretty reasonably. The first year cap hit is down a little bit at about 10 million, and then you've got 17 and a half and 18 the following 2 years. So that's how that contract is weighted out. So knowing that the Seahawks probably want to maintain freedom to move off of Kupp quickly if he gets hurt again or he shows that he isn't what he used to be, I'm going to say they're not going to backload it too aggressively, kind of like the Javon Holland deal. So I am going to go with about 10 million. Now, if the deal has a lot of incentives in it, it's going to be a lot less than that. But let's go ahead and assume the worst for this video, at least a little bit. Let's try to make sure we land close to the target here. And the only way we can do that is if we make some pretty conservative assumptions about how much John is willing to backload, except for Darnold. I think that assuming that Darnold's contract is heavily backloaded is reasonable, simply because he's a quarterback and it's really hard to survive a quarterback contract with those monster hits. So you really want to have at least 1 year where the cap hit is low. Okay, next up we have DeMarcus Lawrence. He got 3 years, 32 million, 3 years, 33 million, somewhere in there. Jacoby Myers got a very similar deal recently, 3 years, 33 million. What was the first year cap hit? Well, first we have to remember he had about 4.3 million void. That may not be something we do with Lawrence. But that being said, the first year cap hit was about 4.2. You can see that it's pretty aggressively laddering here. So John's probably not going to ladder that aggressively for a player this old. Remember, when Myers signed this deal, he was actually pretty young. He was, 27 that first year. So you adjust the cap hit up by a little bit because no void years, up to like 5. And then let's say you get to like, maybe that's a reasonable stopping point. Maybe that's a reasonable stopping point. I'm going to go 5.5. I'm going to go 5.5. It could end up being 6, but I think we're in the ballpark. All right, so that's Lawrence. Then we have Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Now, the nice thing about Scantling is that his deal was a 1-year deal, and we already know the cap hit, 5.5. In theory, that's the cap hit. If some of the money is in incentives, then it could be less. If some of the money is in a void year, it's less. But for now, let's just go ahead and assume that it's 5.5. It can't really be more. I don't see how it could be more. It could be a little bit less. I think that's I think that's a reasonable assumption to make. So let's just leave it at that for the moment. Okay, Josh Jones. We don't have the cap hit yet officially. We know it was a 1-year, 4 3/4 deal, though, so let's just assume the cap hit's that. Again, it could be less, depending on how the contract is exactly structured. 4.75. Then we have Shamar Jean-Charles, who we have not signed, we haven't announced the deal of yet. I believe it's a 1-year deal. And if you take a look at Jean-Charles' history, he's a player that usually gets about veteran minimum. So let's just assume that the deal that he signed with the Seahawks is veteran minimum. Let's just assume he got approximately 1.1 million. If we gave him a lot more than that, that would confuse me because I don't know what he did last year to earn a bunch more money. Like, it's not like he broke out and had some monster season. He played a little bit more on defense than usual, but he didn't do that much. So I don't think that's going to change. And then we have Josh Ross, who is also not listed on OTC, but it's going to be like 1.1 million or so. So it's not going to be a meaningful amount of money. So if these numbers are correct, where does that leave the Seahawks? I put them at 29.1 million in cap. 29.1 million in cap space. Now, again, there's a lot of room for things to be off here. Like if Darnold's cap hit is much bigger, Cooper Kupp's could be a lot smaller. DeMarcus Lawrence's could go either way, I think. And Valdes-Scantling and Josh Jones could be worth a lot less if they're tied up in incentives. I mean, Jones didn't really play last year, so whatever the incentive is, he would not be assumed to be hitting it, right? Same for Lawrence. He played 4 games last year. Any incentives in his deal beyond what we already know about are going to push that cap hit down significantly. But if these are the numbers, then that's where we sit at the moment, 29.1 million. And since I know people are going to ask about this too, if you go over to the draft pool page on Spotrac, the current estimate for Seahawks cap hits in 2025 for their draft pool is 12.8 million, approximately. Call it 12.75. 12.75 million in cap hits for rookies that you draft. Now, usually you end up picking up some UDFAs as well. That's going to cost a little bit of money. That's not a lot. Practice squads cost like 3 million. But the point I'm trying to make is that even if you factor in all that stuff and you're aggressive with it, there's more than $10 million that you can still spend. And you're being very aggressive to create that, right? Like think about it. You created the Uchenna Nwosu redo. You created the Leonard Williams restructure. So I got to believe there's some reason you created that extra cap space. It wasn't just to have it. Now, that's not to say that's impossible to imagine because that cap space can roll over. But why would you do it unless you at least had something of a plan here? So we'll see what ends up happening. But that is going to be my first video today, just trying to figure this out the best that I can. As we learn more information, we'll be able to sub some of these numbers out for the actual numbers, but that's my best take. What do you guys think? Do you guys think I'm way off on any of these numbers? By the way, I know some people are going to ask, some people's going to point it out. The Darnold information we got apparently isn't accurate. And if you do the math, it's almost impossible to figure anyway at this point, right? Like if Sam Darnold's cap hit is 37 million, we basically have zero cap space left. And we literally couldn't afford to sign our rookies. So that wouldn't work. So I don't think that can possibly be true anyway. So put that out of your mind. We need to see the real Darnold contract at some point. But yeah, see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. And that's my take on the current Seahawks cap space situation.